Well, joining us now is Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party of Ontario. Mr. Schreiner, good to see you again. Thank you for being here.
Hey, my pleasure to join you.
So listen, a lot to talk about, but I need to talk first and foremost about the Nova Scotia Premier. Tim Houston appearing today at an event with the PC leader Doug Ford. In a written statement, he says he endorses the PC leader in this election. I'm wondering your reaction to that, to have a Premier out of jurisdiction, to be as visible as he was today and as vocal in that statement about supporting Doug Ford.
Well, I think Mr. Houston can make whatever statement he wants to make, but here's the bottom line is Doug Ford called an unnecessary election at a time when we're facing an unprecedented threat from south of the border with this trade war. The Premier abandoned his job at a time when we should be working across party lines, jurisdictional and sectoral lines to show strength through unity to push back against Donald Trump. But instead, Mr. Ford is playing politics with tariffs as an excuse to get out ahead of the RCMP investigation into the $8.3 billion Greenbelt scandal. I think it's a reckless move on his part.
So reckless because, as you say, rather than calling this election to avoid the RCMP report, if and when that comes out, you gather all members of the provincial parliament to come together to deal with Donald Trump. But we have seen Mr. Ford appear on Fox News, giving interviews to U.S. media. In fact, the Ontario government also sponsored the interview that Sean Hannity did on Fox News with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. What's your reaction to that strategy? What's your assessment of it?
Well, I mean, Mr. Ford seems to be talking more to U.S. media than he does to Ontario media. And I think it's because Mr. Ford's running away from his disastrous record when it comes to the housing affordability crisis, the collapsing of our healthcare system, and the failure to invest in our public education system. Right now, Ontario has the lowest housing starts of any province in the country. We have a whole generation of young people wondering if they'll ever be able to afford a home. We have an unprecedented number of 81,000 people experiencing homelessness in Ontario right now. I would say to the Premier, why don't you actually do your job and build homes that people can afford in Ontario, in the communities they know and love? 2.5 million people without a doctor. Let's get people family doctors. Rural hospitals are closing their emergency departments. Let's reinvest in healthcare and kids being jammed into overcrowded classrooms. And finally, I'll just close by saying, we need to protect Ontario's farmland and nature from Doug Ford's attack. The unprecedented attack on farmland in Ontario at a time when we should be defending our food sovereignty, our food security, and our $50 billion food and farming economy.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, because those are the provincial issues in front of Ontario right now: healthcare, housing, protection of the environment, agricultural land, as you say. But Donald Trump has taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room, and it seems very much that is what Ontario voters are focused on right now, to the benefit of Doug Ford. So are you frustrated that not enough is being said or debated on these provincial initiatives beyond the U.S. tariff threat?
Well, when I knock on doors, and I'm knocking on thousands of doors across the province, when I ask people, what's your number one issue? It's the affordability crisis driven by the housing crisis. Healthcare comes next. Children's education comes next. The affordability crisis is what is crushing for people. And now the Trump tariff threats add anxiety to that. But that's not the number one issue when you actually talk to people at the door. And so I would say to the Premier, why don't you actually do your job and actually start working on the issues that directly affect people's lives? We need a plan like the Ontario Greens first-time homebuyers plan to make homes affordable for young people in the communities they know and love. We need protections for renters in this province. We need the government getting back into building deeply affordable nonprofit, co-op, and supportive housing, because we have 81,000 people in Ontario experiencing homelessness right now. And yet the Premier has abandoned all those issues: housing, healthcare, education, environmental protections, all the things that are in his jurisdiction as Premier.
So at this point then, I wonder what your pitch is, because I hear what you're saying to the Premier, but what do you say to the people of Ontario? Because from Bonnie Crombie, the Ontario Liberal leader, we hear a clear message right now to all progressives, anyone who doesn't want to see Doug Ford back in office. Her party is best positioned, according to the polls right now, to be the next government, more than any other party outside the PCs. So what is your pitch to Ontarians then to vote Green when quite clearly the Liberals and the NDP have a lead in the numbers over you?
In a number of rural ridings currently held by the Conservatives, the Greens are well positioned to break through. Parry Sound Muskoka, where we got second last time, almost won. Wellington, Halton Hills, where there's not a PC incumbent, very strong Green campaign and a history of Green votes there. Same way with Bruce Grey Owen Sound. Both those ridings have local councillors running for the Greens. There is not an incumbent in place right now. If you are sick and tired of all three of the other parties ignoring rural Ontario, so people can have homes they can afford, rural health care, education in rural communities, vote for the Ontario Greens. We're the party that is running local champions who will go to Queen's Park, be your advocate in the legislature, not the party leaders or the Premier's voice in your riding. That message is resonating in a number of rural communities who are sick and tired of the Ford government wasting $2.2 billion on a foreign-owned mega spa in downtown Toronto, tens of billions of dollars on a ridiculous tunnel under Highway 401 on the north end of Toronto, and Highway 413 paving over 2,000 acres of farmland. We have a perfectly good highway right next to it, yet people in rural ridings can't find homes they can afford, can't find a doctor, their hospitals are closing, and their kids are learning in overcrowded classrooms. The Ontario Greens will be your champion at Queen's Park.
Mike Schreiner, 1 week left before the Ontario vote. Thank you for this. Appreciate the time.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.